right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for coming. It's a beautiful day. Time change. Time change last night. Hope everybody got their extra hour of sleep, feeling rested. Um, I'm inspired to talk today by a couple conversations I had this week that were pretty much about the same thing and had completely different meanings, um, and really highlighted a very powerful practice point for me. So I thought I'd share. In the first conversation, I was talking with someone who had to lay down a difficult truth on somebody, right? So that could be firing someone, asking someone to leave, telling someone I have to leave, making strong boundaries. And as a result, uh, the person I was talking to, what they did was, start talking trash. Oh, this person laid me off. This person left me. This person told me I have to change because they're just, selfish and they don't understand me, and just started talking trash. And how difficult that is when we feel like we have to make a move that's good, that's ultimately compassionate, ultimately what needs to happen, knowing that we're going to be the bad guy, bad person. And as we kind of talked more about it, we both were really resonating with this. And I'm sure a lot of us here in this particular kind of context can all relate to identifying with being the good person, right? I'm kind, I'm loving, I'm compassionate, I meditate, I'm open minded. Even Kyoshin a few weeks ago shared with us how, she likes to pride herself on being someone that everyone likes, never bad blood with anybody. And lo and behold, something went down, and now she has an enemy. Not an enemy, but someone who had a small conflict. I guess I don't know much about it, but we were just talking about how powerful that drive is to want to be a good person. And now this person's out talking trash about us and saying I'm selfish and saying I'm this or that, and how difficult that can be, and how the urge to respond with like correcting them. No, what they're saying is inaccurate. They don't get me. And they're spreading all these lies about me. And it was just so clear that while the decision to lay that hard truth was good for everybody, ultimately, what was really holding this person back, and me, and I'm sure we all can relate to this, what was holding us back from enjoying that release was this like, now people think I'm a bad person. And we just kind of stumbled across this really nice release of just like, just be the villain, just be the meanie. It's this clenching, holding on to myself as a certain kind of thing that causes so much suffering in so many different ways. And in this particular case, if I can just let go and say, well, all right, all their friends are just going to think I'm an a hole. There's a lot of freedom in that. And this practice of ours of really coming in touch with no self, seeing how empty all the things we think we are, all the things we think we should be, how people should perceive us. And if they don't, I'm going to do whatever I can to do the marketing to get them to know what I really am. Just causes so much suffering. And when we came across this idea, the phrase that struck me was just be the villain and add it to your resume. You know, there's really a lot of peace in that. And the Buddha did that. The Buddha did that for sure. Um, to gain his enlightenment and pass his mind down to us now, he left his wife, left his son, totally abandoned his clan. I'm sure they were all talking shit about him. And, you know, I think that villainy is outweighed by the thousands of years of wisdom and compassion that has spread throughout the world because of that move. I don't know, it's hard to measure, but one could say that. So, yeah, be the villain. Be open to being everything and everyone. It reminded me of a koan in the Mumon Khan. I think it's case like 44, 45. I don't know. We were working on it recently. But a monk comes to see Tozan. Tozan's a major teacher at the time, and Tozan asks the monk, where were you recently? And the monk says, Cha Tu Mountain or something like that. And then Tozan says, where were you during the summer practice period? And he says, I was at Paozu in Hunan. And he says, when did you leave there? And he says, the 25th of August. And Tozan says, I spare you 60 blows with my stick. And then the monk leaves and comes back the next day and he said, Master, yesterday you spared me 60 blows. Or actually, some of the translations say that Tozan says, I give you 60 blows with my stick. Doesn't matter whether they're spared or whether they're given. Doesn't matter. But the monk comes back the next day and he says, yesterday you gave me 60 blows. I don't know where I was at fault. What did I do wrong? And Tozan says, you rice bag, have you been going around like this, now west of the river, now south of the lake? And at that, the monk had great awakening. Huge Satori opening to the oneness of everything. So just taking a look at this koan, so the monk comes to see Tozan. This particular monk was really scholarly, I believe, and had studied a lot in school about Buddhism and the history and stuff like that. But he really wanted to learn get the direct transmission of what the Buddha had seen. So he travels all around China. I think he crosses the entire country um, just to see Tozan, the great Tozan. So he gets to Tozan, and Tozan starts asking these questions. And a lot of these koans, a lot of these ancient Zen uh, texts start with these seemingly casual interactions. Where have you been? Where are you from? Where have you gone? Um, and, there's a lot you can say about whether they're just straight up, straightforward, casual questions, or whether they're really prodding in some kind of Zen way, some kind of test, right? Where have you been recently? Nowhere. I am no thing. You know what I mean? There's like that kind of aspect to it, and that's all, that's all mumbo jumbo. And so instead of looking at, are these testing questions? Are they casual questions? To me, the power in these interactions um, really lies in connection. Tozan's just trying to connect with this dude. He's not looking for a certain kind of answer. He's not looking for a certain kind of person. Sometimes saying, yo, I was at the taco man. is the perfect answer, sometimes saying just this is the right answer. It's not about right or wrong. That's kind of the point. But what I think is important in these, looking at these interactions, where have you been? Where were you in the summer? When did you leave? It's not about getting at any kind of idea as much as just really trying to connect. And how do we do that? When you meet someone at the bus station, or when you say what's up to your coworker on Monday and you say, how was your weekend? How are you engaging in that conversation? Obviously, they may not know about Zen, they may not know about koan answers and things like that. But how are you showing up when you ask, what did you do this weekend? Are you listening? Are you seeing if they're giving you eye contact? Is there a sadness behind their voice? Is there a loneliness there? Do they answer authentically? Do they answer quickly? Maybe they don't want to be bothered. How present are we, even in the most mundane conversations? And I think that's a really powerful practice. Not expecting any kind of answer from anyone, but just being open to really seeing someone, whether they're a villain or a hero, really showing up. I think it's such a powerful practice. So they have this interaction. He's asking all these questions. The monk kind of gives these very, normal kind of regular answers. Here, first I was here, and then in the summer I was there, and I left on August 25th. And Tozan says, I give you 60 blows with my stick. And of course, there's a lot of Zen stories where sticks are used to kind of help us awaken, right? Whether they were actually used or not, who knows? But just that kind of direct experience, getting it for ourselves, hearing my friend's answers in my heart, in my whole body. That's what this practice is about. Um, so yeah, I give you 60 blows. And then the monk goes back to his quarters. And a lot of the commentary says, that night for that monk was just hell. He's sitting in there. The great Tozan hit me 60 times. What did I do? He's going through all of the things he's read. He's going through all the koans he's studied. He's trying to figure out, how could I have answered better? Oh God, and he's just racking his brain. How did I offend Master Tozan so much? And I just love that. I mean, what a genuine, authentic spiritual inquiry this guy has. I've done that, where I go into Doksan with a koan and I don't get it right. And I go back again, I don't get it right. And I'm just like lying in bed that night, just like teeming, seething. What am I wrong with? What don't I see? And as painful as it is, it's a really powerful part of our spiritual journey. If your meditation practice is all lighthearted and feeling the love and feeling the flow, that's cool. There's definitely use for that. And I'm sure it helps to regulate and it helps us to be more patient and loving in our life. But for those of us with a real inquiry into what is my true self, what the fuck are we doing here? How could this all be one and have so much oppression and separation? Then you might have these torturous nights like this monk. So he comes back after this night of, oh, what's wrong with me? And he says, Master, where was I wrong? Why did you give me your 60 blows? And Tozan says, you rice bag, which on the one hand could be kind of a loving insult, right? You're nothing but a rice bag with all of your worrying about how good you are. But also, rice bag, you know, a rice bag is the container that holds sustenance for people. What a beautiful thing to be. Selfless, underappreciated, but containing that which gives life to people. It sounds like a pretty beautiful thing to be to me. A rice bag. Anyway, so he says, you rice bag, have you been going on like that here at Mount Hunan, here at Chatu Temple, separating things, thinking there's a right and a wrong, trying to be seen a certain way? I bet if I didn't give you 60 blows, I bet if I told you you were so enlightened, you would have gone back and just felt so good about yourself. Which is fine too, but I think this is really pointing at the same thing. Be a villain. Be wrong. You know, this koan, the 60 blows, he's just poking him. How are you going to receive this? You did the right thing by coming here and trying to connect with me. That's great. But now, when I go telling all my friends that you got 60 blows, how is that going to affect you? Is that going to make you clench up and try to get the right answer so you can be right and good all the time? Or can you just say, give me the blows, man, help me out? And in fact, in thinking about this first conversation with this person, I realized that in that particular case, agreeing, allowing oneself to be the villain is actually an act of service. You know, I have to tell this person that they got to leave and they're going to be hurt. And if they can just go around, if I can just be at peace with them going around telling everybody how awful I am, how unfair I am, how short sighted I was, and I can just allow them to do that and not get involved and not call them and say, I heard you were telling so and so that I'm selfish, but you were the one that. If I can just drop all that and just say, all right, I'm a dick. Sorry for the language. Um, then that's almost allowing that person to heal. Maybe it's kind of a service. I will be the bad guy so that you can get over this and move on. And it kind of made me think of the sixth precept, right? We have the Bodhisattva precepts, kind of Buddhist ethics practice guide. And the sixth precept is not talking about others' errors and faults, right? How does talking about others' faults show up in my life? And this particular instance kind of flipped it around for me. It's an interesting way to see this precept is being open to others talking about my errors and faults. How does that show up? Can I just allow that? Can I take myself out of it? And if people want to talk shit about me, what we learn from this precept practice is that when we break these precepts, I don't like that language, but when I do talk about others' errors and faults, pretty much 100% of the time, that's coming from my hurt. Pretty much 100% of the time. If I need to go tell people so and so is selfish, so and so is sick in the head, it's because I'm hurt. And so when I hear that someone's talking about my errors and faults, can I greet that with compassion and say, man, they must be hurting real bad right now? And either step away from it, just allow it, Um, and yeah, just kind of see it as an act of service. Let me be the punching bag. I think Maizumi Roshi said, or I don't know, maybe he was quoting someone, just a really powerful kind of teaching to be like the earth and let people walk all over you. It's a tricky one because there's a lot of trauma as well around being conditioned to not speak up. And so, in a lot of instances, speaking up is the right thing to do. But just as a koan, as something to sit with, what would that be like? To be like the earth and let people walk all over you with no sense of self involved. It's hard. So that's the first conversation. And the second conversation I had was with someone very close to me who is Israeli. I have a number of Israeli friends and family, and I like to just kind of create a space for listening. I don't know enough about the Israel-Palestine situation to have any useful opinion, I don't think, other than killing is bad. So I've just been really trying to do the three tenets, not knowing, bear witness, and see what kind of loving action comes up. So far, the best loving action I've had is to just listen, just allow people to share, absorb a lot of yelling and passion. But in one particular conversation, this person said, you know, these folks on that side are hell bent, no questions asked, on killing all of us. There is nothing we can do. They only live to kill us. That's all they want to do. And so we got to do what we got to do. Bad stuff's going to happen. Civilians are going to die. And essentially, I'm just going to be the villain. It's for the greater good. And so we kind of just have to be the villain here. So, same sentence, but somehow had a very different feel for me. And to me, that's just such a powerful expression of how the Dharma is never this and it's never that, right? So to walk away from this talk saying, yeah, let's just be the villain. That's the answer. Just let go and let people walk all over us and be the villain. That's not it. And to say, never be the villain, never do anything bad, that's not it either. And so these two conversations happening literally one day after another was such a loud cry to me that all of these difficult questions that we face in our life, all of these spiritual inquiries, they're moving, they're evolving. There's no one answer fits all to anything. That's why the Diamond Sutra talks so much about non-abiding. Remember, I gave a series of talks on non-abiding. We don't abide anywhere. We don't stay or hang on to or grab at anything. Always open, using those three tenets, not knowing, so I can bear witness. In this situation, good to be the villain. That situation, better to be the saint. And that's why we practice constantly. That's why there's no, there's some people who are like, oh, I did a bunch of retreats and I totally hit the emptiness, boundlessness, bliss button, and now I'm good. And it just doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. And so I said to this person, I was like, after they said, we just got to be the villain. It's the right thing to do. And I said, man, I just can't think of any circumstance where killing innocent civilians is a good idea. And he said, um, he was open, and he said, what would Buddha say? What did Buddha say about self-defense? And first I said, be like the earth and let people walk all over you. It's one answer, and there are Israelis, at least that I know of, who are like, yeah, let's just get out of there. Let's just leave. Give them what they want. Those are mostly expat Israelis who don't live there, so it's not exactly fair. But then I thought about it, and the one story about war that I know of the Buddha is a neighboring tribe or clan uh, was hell bent on decimating. Basically, there was just drama, just drama having to do with marriages and family lines. And the clan that the Buddha belonged to, the Shakya clan, had kind of deceived and disrespected the other clan, so they were going to come and wage war. And so the Buddha tried 3 times. He meditated in front of the advancing army, and 3 times the advancing army said, all right, the Buddha said we shouldn't, so we'll go back. But then they came a 4th time, just hell bent, no Buddha's going to stop us. And they approached Kapilavastu to wage their massacre of the Buddha's people. And the Buddha, the only thing I could read in all of the sutras I read, the Buddha was just sad. And Ananda was like, why are you sad? What can we do? And the Buddha just said, I can't do anything. And he watched as his entire clan was massacred. Tens of thousands of his people brutally murdered. So I told this story to my Israeli loved one, friend, and he said, well, what lesson do you learn from that? So I'm still learning it. I'm still learning it. I don't know what to say about it. I found quotes from the Dalai Lama saying, sometimes violence is necessary as long as that violence is not coming from anger. He said if the violence is coming from compassion, he was asked about should we have killed Hitler? Should we have killed Stalin? Should we have killed, um, I forget, but he said, yeah, sometimes you do got to do that stuff, but you have to make sure it's not coming from anger or reaction, but compassionate action. And then you have the samurai, right? I read a little bit about the samurai, which was a warrior caste in Japan in the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th centuries ish. I don't know too much about it, but they have a Bushido code that they follow. And Zen came to Japan, or Buddhism came to Japan, and the whole thing of selflessness kind of like jived with their, vision of dying is an honorable thing. Um, Similarly, in World War II, Zen monks were kind of recruited and they almost kind of exploited this, like, you should be selfless and have no sense of self, so you should go sacrifice yourself for the country. And so you had this phenomenon of Zen monks signing up to be like kamikaze pilots, and all in the name of Japan. I don't know. I don't know. So, what does Buddhism say about self defense? This is a great koan for us all to sit with. I'm afraid I don't have any really great answers for you. The one thing that does come up for me that helps me a little bit with all of this, be the villain, don't be the villain. When is villainy compassionate? When is it inexcusable. Um, I just think of Seisin, my teacher, our founder, the abbot of our temple. Um, and I get as her student and as the abbot in training, I get a chance to meet with her for hours and hours a week and get to work with her on administrative stuff and teaching stuff and still finishing up training with her in various ways. And if anyone asked me like, what is Seisin teaching now, like, you get to see her, talk to her almost every day, what are her teachings in this kind of later part of her teaching career, I would say that one of the things I hear her say the most is, oh my God, what an asshole I am. All the time. I'm such an asshole. How did I not see that? And that's a beautiful expression of kind of what this practice is. Slowly shedding the layers of, this is what I know, this is how it should be, this is what is right, why don't people see it my way? And just over and over opening up to, how am I an asshole? How am I wrong? Dogen talks about our life and our practice is just one continuous mistake. And I feel like that's kind of in the same spirit. We're just one continuous villain all the time. Anytime we attach to some kind of idea, anytime we separate at all, it's villainy. And yet, we have to. If we didn't separate ourselves, we wouldn't wake up in the morning and get out of bed. And so, yeah, if there's any best kind of thing I could say in this one moment about the evil, or I don't know about evil, about the tragic behavior that we see from the Middle East to Russia, Ukraine, to here at home, racist policies, uh, counterproductive policies against the unsheltered, even the way we mismanage romance, all these micro and macro villainous activities. Um, I just wish we could all ask, how am I an asshole? How am I wrong? I think that would shift so much if everybody did that, not just one side, but if we all just opened up to being the bad guy, opened up to being wrong, I think we would have a lot more love and compassion in our lives, and certainly a lot more understanding. So, yeah, yeah, this practice is the best way I know how to do that. Sit in silence a lot and watch how all the ways I think I'm right, think I'm good, all the ways that those come up. It's just endless. And so I really encourage everyone to pursue this stillness. And we have this really awesome yurt with chirping birds and mariachi music next door to do it with. So thank you for joining us in that silence. And let's all be wrong together. Thank you for being villains.